It's not, we didn't invent it. I've heard it other places, but those three together, so, again, you got adoption, you got fees and revenue, and then value capture, where you, the token holder, is there some mechanism in place to where you benefit from those fees and revenue? So, like Hype, Hype, 100% of the fees that the platform generates does the programmatic buyback and burn. Same thing. You see the same model with Ken. It's still inflationary, but you see the same model with Ken. And these are the projects that seem to be very resilient in this bear market. I mean, what are you seeing?
Well, this has been probably the weirdest bear market I've been a part of. The first one was like the 2018, and I was just like green and a noob, so I didn't really know. I was just like, I didn't even know I was in a bear market. But this compared to 2021 or 22 has been more like a mushroom trip. Like, I don't know what it's like.
A mushroom
it's just
trip.
Things like, DZ going down to, right in the summer, bummer, DZ, leaving for Florida. It's just one of those things that's like happens in a bear market. And I don't remember it like this in 2000. My question to everyone here is, weren't we all a little more hopeful in 2022 when the price was like at 15.5? Like I felt like the sky was the limit. I don't feel like the community is really like that anymore, but maybe I live in a bubble. What do you guys think?
Are you talking about the whole crypto market, or are you speaking about Cardano specifically?
The whole crypto market. Like Bitcoin umbrella down, right?
And what do you think about the current Cardano situation?
Well, listen, I've always judged altcoins. I call it the spec decks, and I judge them on their founder, how autistic or Aspergerish their founder was, and he was very high. Not as high as Vitalik Buterin on the spec deck, but so one thing that I always worry about these founders, especially when they're high on the spec deck, is that when they finally get some money, I don't think they have the world life experience to handle that type of responsibility. And I fear that with money comes women, and then with women comes their inevitable unraveling because they've never really experienced it. Now, I don't know anything about his personal life, but when I see guys like Vitalik or what's the guy from Cardano's name again?
Charles Hoskinson.
Yeah, Chucky Ho-Ho. Yeah, that's right. When I see a guy like that, I'm like, that guy's got like supermodels going to take everything underneath of him, from underneath him in a heartbeat.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense to me, actually. Yeah, I remember we were watching, David, the thing with Charles about Cardano. Yes. But the vibe that I get from him is a lot about inner circle gossip and me versus them. I saw a recent video of his that he was pissed at the Ethereum Foundation people because he did a bunch of work, but they have no consideration about all the amazing job that he's been doing along the years. So it seems like something say, yeah, so what? It's a lot of gossip, and he's sad, she's sad. Oh, Ethereum people, you cannot talk about Cardano. No, do you get this kind of thing? Like a lot of intrigue, a lot of emotionalism, a lot of gossip.
Look, man, I look at price
versus them,
and price tells me a lot of what I need to know. And what I see for ADA for Cardano is nothing good. And so, when I see Charles Hoskinson coming out and saying, I got to step away for a second, I got to take a pause. And then a couple of weeks later, he comes right back and says that we're going to 60x the transaction speed over the next 6 months, and then all he does is, for the last post that he made on YouTube, he spent that entire post, it was about 25 minutes long, talking about how Ethereum isn't, the Ethereum Foundation, Ethereum devs are not giving him credit for everything that he's already built out. Very emotional. I think that he should be focused on making Cardano the best product he can make it, instead of being focused on saying Ethereum isn't giving us this or isn't giving us that credit. It's just like, it's a non-starter for me. He's got to build that product into something that's going to get real commercial success. In the absence of that, it looks like Cardano is a dying chain. So, I mean, he's got his work cut out for him, man. And I don't see anything good going on there, because there's this death spiral that we see playing out over and over again with these different chains. And it looks to me like if Cardano does not make significant changes now, that it's entering a death spiral. That's what it looks like. So,
Drew just texted me, and he's like, "Oh, I'm wiped today," and I said, "Piano Matty B's on," so I'm gonna see if he jumps on. But so, well, let's talk about autistic freaking founders. You know, you got freaking Ethereum with Vitalik, and you're talking about girls. Yeah, dude, they just don't know how to act. You know, him and his gray sweatpants, man. He runs into
oh my god,
he loses shit, man. But
and she wasn't even fucking hot, dude. Like that chick, ugh.
Dude. It's when you've been the guy that got no attention your whole fucking life, and all of a sudden you got women just raining out of the sky. I don't think they care, dude.
Why did he allow her? Like, dude, he could have a Russian princess, like a blonde, beautiful Russian princess, if he wanted that.
You just look at him, and he doesn't always come off as a best composed.
Oh man!
Let's jump into the flock cameras. So like I said, yeah, flocka. I got nabbed, dude. Like freaking, I went into the big city, from the cabin here to pick up my nephew, and again, I was taking a right on a red. There's no signage that says no turn on a red, and they took a picture and it's $150. It sounds like Paulo saw the same post that I saw, where some young lady, both hands on the wheel, eyes forward, cell phone on her lap, face down, and she's getting like $1,000-something ticket. I mean, have any of you gotten hit by that yet?
I have not. I have not gotten hit by any of that. That's probably because I don't drive. I live on a beach, so I walk. But so I think that there's a positive argument to be made in favor of these flock cameras. And there's also a dystopian future, argument to be made about these flock cameras. Why don't we start with the good, right? Because if you're law enforcement and you're working to really do your job, well, having access to video footage like this is a big leg up, right? But there's a privacy problem and potentially big civil rights concerns in the United States, maybe in a communist authoritarian regime like what you got in the UK or in Europe, a lot of Europe, you probably don't want cameras tracking your every move, right? But in the United States, we've got a Fourth Amendment right, against search and seizure without a court warrant, and to have your location doxed and then to be sent tickets in the mail because you made a right turn when you weren't supposed to make a right turn. That's some bullshit. That is really some bullshit. And also, there's been a couple of stories in the press recently on X about police officers who have taken advantage of these flock cameras for personal gain. Let's say that you're a cop and you've got a significant other and you want to track that significant other around town. You have access to these flock cameras. You can potentially do that. And so there's a couple of cops who are actually facing some severe consequences as a result of doing just that. That's a problem. So you got the positive where you can, stop criminals who are doing really heinous shit. But you've also got to make sure that people's privacy is not being violated. How do you do that? I don't know how to do that. So if
There's
I have
this guy on YouTube called Ben Jordan. You guys watch it, the Ben Jordan video about flock cameras. He has he released like two different, it almost looks like a documentary about flock cameras. And he found several lies, a bunch of fragilities and issues with those. For example, flock cameras, they do not have true FA. Most of them do not have true FA. And you can click, he showed this on the video, and you can click a button behind the camera and it will open the Wi-Fi network and you can log into it.
So Paulo, does that mean that I can use, Fable 5 or Grok 4.5 or a local model to potentially hack these flock cameras?
I don't
Is that
think
what
you
that
need
means?
Fable or Anthropic. I think if you have an LG cell phone and you can log onto your Wi-Fi, and you can see whatever's there, and you can
That's
open
not good.
files. He demonstrated. It's on YouTube.
That's horrible. That's
Ben
bad.
Johnson, you just YouTube Ben Johnson flock camera, and you will see this guy hacking on the flock cameras, and you can see everything. You can see he showed. You can see like the patrol cars where they are. You can see where the cameras are. You can see live feed from the cameras, and this is open. You click the buttons, you log into it. There are no 2FA. If you log on Netflix, don't you need like 2FA? If you log on Disney Plus, don't you need like 2FA authentication? Not for flock cameras. Most of
No,
them.
you're right, and I see the video that he posted. He's got 2 million views on that video. So that's from 7 months ago in Atlanta.
Right, exactly.
Jeff, share it in the source.
In
The source,
Oh,
our social media network on the node.
Mhm.
oh yeah, you got it up and running.
So-
Now I know. So,
Matt-
I live
so
in the
Matt-
Bay Area, right? And
Oh, go
they've
ahead.
been putting all these cameras up in San Francisco and Oakland, the speeding trap cameras. And I guess if your first or second offense, you get a warning, but after that, they start sending you tickets. And I know there some. I've seen some interviews with people who are like career criminals, and they said that they can't do crime anymore because of the cameras. So I guess that's a good thing. But also, there was an instance last year where somebody was involved in a hit and run, and they drove up. They basically tracked this car using all the cameras and stuff on some of the main roads, and were able to find out where they're at. So yeah, that
Let's
like if you're not
discuss.
doing anything wrong, it could
No, hold on.
potentially
Let's
against
let's
you if
dig
somebody
into that.
doesn't.
So,
Yeah.
what about the argument that there's, the police can do their job more effectively. They can use it to track, criminals. Like, if somebody robs a bank or assaults somebody, they can track them. At what point do we give up, our liberty and freedom? The surveillance state. We allow ourselves to be surveilled at that level for safety. We always, people always talk about, that fine line between safety and liberty. Like Maddie, you're up in Canada. I mean, kind of what's your thoughts on it?
Well, we don't have flock cameras up here yet because we're always probably 6 months behind of everything. We've had speed cameras here forever. But one thing that we probably all didn't notice is probably 5 years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, there was talk about all these cameras that were being put up at intersections. They weren't really speed cameras; they were just cameras, right? And everyone kind of had the same pushbacks, like this is bullshit, and they would stop the surveillance, and then it kind of went down. And now, if you just drive down the street, like beyond the flock cameras, there's cameras in Canada anyway at every single intersection that I drive. It's very rare that there's not a camera there. So my problem with everything is that the definition of criminal changes, right? So up here in Canada, we're about to get some like incredible censorship bills passed, C9 and C22 and 32. It's just like it's communist up here, and it's getting worse and worse. So what wasn't a criminal yesterday may become a criminal in 3 months, and then the trap's there already, right? So it's like the majority of us are probably like, at the end of the day, I don't really care. That these cameras, they're bullshit, and I'd rather them not there. But it's not like I'm a career criminal, so I don't really give a shit. But I don't think that's what they're trying to capture is like the petty theft. I think it goes far beyond that. It gets dystopian and it gets dark pretty fast.
Well, it's
This
like with
guy,
privacy.
Ben Johnson,
Same way.
he was taking pictures of the flock cameras so he could document and make that video for YouTube. That week, some police officers came to his house asking a bunch of questions. Why are you taking pictures of the cameras? So it doesn't.
Paulo, where is Ben Johnson out of? What jurisdiction?
Georgia.
Atlanta. So if you live in Atlanta and you're a U.S. citizen, I'm not an attorney, but what I would say is you don't have to speak to police ever.
Right.
Okay. So
remain silent.
that's exactly right.
I agree with you, and I
he's
don't
absolutely
voluntarily
allowed.
would speak to the police if I don't.
No
Without an attorney.
matter what they say, they are not on your side. They are agents of the state. Okay. Now, keep in mind, these are people. These are human beings. They're doing a very difficult job.
Yes.
But you should have respect for them. But that does not mean that you need to speak to them. So, for anyone who is, being confronted with police officers, just remember, if you're an American citizen and you reside in the United States, you can say, you know what, officer, I really appreciate your time, but I have nothing to say. I have no statement for you.
Yeah.
That's it.
You don't have to answer the door. However, my point is, it's kind of scary that he was just taking pictures of the camera that are recording him all the time. When he pointed his camera back at the cameras, they're recording him full time. The police showed up to his door. You don't have to talk to them, but that's not very comfortable, is it? Do you have the police
that goes
checking
to
back
show
on
you
What is that?
that they looked at the timestamp on the freaking video of him taking pictures of the camera. They tracked his cell phone to connect the two, and was able to, with the cell phone, track down who he was and where he was. How else would they have known, where his house was?
There's a good reason for us to be worried about this, because if you guys see any of the video content that comes out of mainland China, like real on the ground video content out of mainland China, it is just crazy, man. Like that social credit system, like that's what they're trying to work us up towards. It seems like the EU is working towards that faster than maybe Canada or the United States is. I would say that Canada has pushed down that path of authoritarian communism much more quickly. But thank God for President Trump. If it wasn't for Trump, then we'd be stuck with Kamala working down towards some communist authoritarian regime where every single one of our movements would be tracked with these fucking flock cameras everywhere. And it would be used against us. It would be used against us. Why were you at this location, Mr. Zimmerman? What is it that you were doing there?
We need somebody in this group to take the pro flock camera stance. We're all agreeing.
There's a good flock camera stance. There really is. I think there's a really good reason to be pro flock camera. Okay. Now, should it be a private company running these devices? I don't think so. But there's a good reason to have them, because think about how many crimes go either unreported or unsolved, serious crimes. I'm talking about murder, et cetera, like really horrible crimes.
I don't know. So maybe it needs to be a private company, and it requires some court order or something like that. So it has to be like a capital offense, or it has to meet some threshold. And maybe that's a slippery slope too. Maybe it starts with that. With the Patriot Act. It starts out with something that seems benign, but all of a sudden it becomes where we saw on January 6th, where there were some people that were arrested, held without charges, some in solitary confinement for years.
For years.
And so basically their freaking due process rights were severely violated. So at what point do we allow this stuff? That's kind of my question to you all still is there an acceptable fucking threshold that we're willing to give up our privacy?
So
they were domestic
Mike,
terrorists,
That's right. So Jeff,
domestic terrorist due process, but during COVID, you remember how they were telling people who didn't get vaccinated were domestic terrorists,
or the truckers in Canada, what they did to them.
Now people that are against the flock cameras are being called terrorists. at least by the people that produce, about the flock camera people that they sell the solution to the government. They say if you destroy, you saw probably on X that a bunch of people are so revolted against this that they are destroying flock cameras.
Oh,
So
the mask
yeah,
crews.
so that's an act of terrorism.
Here's a quick little pro stance on the flock cameras. In a perfect world, they would probably enhance a trust-based society, right? It would be a nice add-on. But I think the days are over of a trust-based society. So for instance, Mike, you said you got that red light, no turn on red ticket instantly, right? And you were talking about the truckers, right? So the truckers, she's about to, I can't remember her name, but her parole, not her parole, but her like probation is about to lapse, and they're going to take her back to court. Now, at the same time, there's a ton of Muslim, East Indian, Canadian truckers that have ran over multiple people and killed them. And
They're not Canadian.
nothing's happening.
They're not Canadian.
Right.
They're Muslim.
No, they are Canadian, but I'm putting it in quotations.
Not really.
They're obviously, yeah. In my books, they're not, but they've been fast tracked. So for instance, someone like me would get that red light ticket, but the guy who mowed down 12 people in the country, not stopping at a stop sign, nothing happens to him. When easily, there was a guy that just fled back to India, I think today, and he was going to be sentenced in 5 days. So in a perfect world, well, no, he just fucked off, right? So it's like they're too busy giving you and me red light tickets with surveillance. Meanwhile, he just leaves. So in a perfect world, it'd be a nice add-on.
So
Well, how many
why is it?
around the country that get these CDLs that they handed out here in California? There's one in Florida, one I think in Texas or somewhere. Like a number of people that just mowed through a bunch of cars or turned in a median in a highway.
Dude, I want to know how the hell, if they don't, because there's a bunch of them that because they started doing English tests at the way stations. Because I had a CDL. I drove long haul trucking for about 6 months after I got out of the Marine Corps because I needed a minute. I needed to just be by myself for a minute, and so I did long haul trucking for 6 months. And every once in a while, you're going through the way stations whenever you cross like state lines and stuff, and for whatever reason, they can pull you off if because they have things that track and stuff like that. And if you got there too fast, they'll pull you off and they'll go through your logbook and make sure that you're getting the required sleep times and stuff like that. And they started giving an English test, and a bunch of these guys didn't even know English. And I know from taking the CDL test, you got to know fucking English to be able to pass that thing. And to read the signs and all that kind of stuff. So how the hell are people that don't even speak the native language, whatever country they're in, getting Class C CDLs with hazmat endorsements and
Because it's important to be inclusive, and that's why the driver, when you have an exam for a driver's license or even to become an American citizen, you can take it in Spanish. Or if you are from a different country, even you can take it in Portuguese or in French.
Well, the problem is that all of the signs across the United States, for the most part, except in some very specific areas, they're all in English.
They should
So
change
how
that.
the hell are they
They should
passing
change that to be more inclusive.
Yeah,
They should change that.
the signs need to be more inclusive. You said.
If
I
only
think so.
Kamala got voted in, we'd still have DEI.
Oh my God! Have you guys seen in California recently? Are you guys familiar with in the 1980s and 90s in California, specifically in Oakland, California, there was this push to include Ebonics
Right.
into and so
Right.
now
I remember that.
they're bringing that back. They're saying that we need to include Ebonics in public school classrooms now. Why don't we just start teaching shit in Mandarin? Like what the
Right.
fuck? What are we even talking about? We speak English here, okay? If you can't read the street signs, you have no business driving a vehicle, be it a Class C or having a C. You can't drive if you can't read the street signs, man.
Well, I mean, I'll put it this way. I mean, I've traveled all over the world in the military, and everywhere that I've gone, I respect the local customs. I respect the local language. I might slaughter their language. I lived in Korea for a year. But the first thing I did is I learned how to say hello, goodbye, please, thank you, sir, ma'am, the basics, to show respect. And it goes a long way. The problem with a lot of people that come to the US now, they expect us to, basically accommodate them, where it's like, if you want that your culture, stay where you're at. If you want a different life, you go to that different place, the US, Europe, whatever. You go to the place that, is willing to, offers you the lifestyle that you want for you and your family. But you need to acclimate to that culture and, not get offended because somebody's eating bacon and, 3 tables down from you, or, they're walking their dog, or, whatever. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Maddie, let me ask you a quick question. Are you aware of that thing? I saw it something on X, but I know you are in Canada. I saw something that if you are a psychiatrist and you see some odd behavior, you can write that person and you have like a remark. And the police, if that person gets pulled over, say, hey, you've been written up by a psychiatrist and you might not be mentally stable or something like that. Did you see something about that? Is there some?
Yeah, there was like this Asian man in BC who got pulled over, and someone had kind of, I guess, a psychiatrist that deemed him like mentally unstable, and it was kind of documented for a while, and then it just disappeared. Right, it just one day you see it all over the place, and then it gets a little heat, and then it just disappeared. But before that happened, I had no clue anything like that actually exists. And maybe it does now. I don't know. I've never heard it before. I haven't heard it since. But it wouldn't surprise me up here in Canada.
So Paulo, but Black Ice says that you have a voice like velvet.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Well, he says you have a great radio voice, but I interpreted that as you have a voice like velvet.
Like velvet. Yeah, because you see, Mike, like this thing in Canada, and now we have this police state. I know that the name of the show is Red Pill, it's not Black Pill, that everything we're all going to die. But do you really think that this process can be stopped? For example, we are in 2026. We've never been more surveilled in the history of mankind, right? Is there any chance that 2027 we're going to be less surveilled?
No, it's going to get worse and worse and worse as long as we let them do it. Because it's the same thing as with crypto. It's the reason I got into crypto is I served for 22 years in the military to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The whole oath thing. I got out, and honestly, I don't feel super free. It's like in certain states I can't own certain firearms, but if I go to another state, I can. If you driving around, we're being surveilled with cameras now. They can track you with your cell phone. I mean, we voluntarily carry this freaking thing around. It's a microphone, a camera, a tracking device. They can everything you surf and everything that you do, your online activity, and we voluntarily do that because of convenience. Because it's convenient. It makes life cushy and easy. I'm as guilty as the rest of you. I'm not on a soapbox right now. I use my phone on a daily basis, but we got to be real. It's that's kind of my 2 cents. Is I mean, we're kind of or I'm kind of complaining about these flock cameras, but at the same time, they I'm voluntarily carrying around a cell phone that does a lot of the same things and more.
You know what the true red pill or black pill or whatever it is about all of this, and that's hard to swallow, is that at the end of the day, it's our fault. And so I'll give you a little example that drove me to this. My brother-in-law is a principal at a high school. And every time I'd go over on Sunday night, he'd tell me about this complete retard teacher that was just, he didn't know how this woman kept her job. And he always had this crazier and crazier story about this woman. And then he left the school and I stopped the stories. Then he told me that he went back to the school for some meeting. And I'm like, hey, what about that retard teacher you were always talking about? And he's like, you're not going to believe this. Like, what? she's a MLA now, like a member legislative assembly. Like she's in politics. She's
Yeah, that's the lady.
six-figured. She makes $130K, and now she's in government. And then it dawned on me. So you take the five of us, we're probably head down working. You know, like the only time we're coming up is that part of the front crawl where you're just getting air. We're just working, trying to provide value, trying to build, protect our family. Meanwhile, every time one of these little openings happen in politics, we're too busy working, breathing, and doing the front crawl. Meanwhile, it opens up this room for these people that can't provide anything to normal society. Now they're in politics. Now they're defining, how the world is kind of run. And it really is our fault. If we want it to change, I suppose we got to stop swimming. And I get political, but I fucking hate politics. I hate politicians. I hate everything about it. It makes me sick, right?
They'll dig up anything to try and discredit you too. They'll look into.
What do you mean? You
part-
can't discredit the fuck out of me at all. Like, I
I discredited myself, motherfucker.
that's right. How you like that? How you like them apples? You know,
I think there might come a time where that doesn't matter anymore. Like we might get like the whole sensitivity to any type of person's past. It'll be irrelevant, and maybe that's when people like us maybe start moving into politics and changing.
What do you mean, the sensitivity of the past, of the previous?
Well, like let's say, like Paulo, before he was a voiceover artist and did all these
He's got a
movies.
great voice, by the way.
He had an OnlyFans where he did a
Right.
he did,
Yeah. He was on Feet
OnlyFans
Finder.
ASMR.
hey, I'm not
Turns
kink
out-
shaming. Paulo, I'm not kink shaming.
Okay,
Hey, Paulo,
okay,
that's not a
all
bad
good.
idea. So Paulo, OnlyFans ASMR, man. I think you do pretty well with that.
Hey, yeah. Only voice. Only.
And then you're
There you go.
disqualified from politics because you're on Feet Finder for 6 months, right? Nobody will care.
Yeah, while Maddie, at the same time, you've got straight up communists who are getting elected to these positions of power. And
Mhm.
I mean, look, I was sleeping with a communist 2 weeks ago. Okay. And you know what? We would argue about fucking
Those are your
Kierkegaard.
enemies.
Bro, we were arguing about Kierkegaard and Nietzsche. I call him Nietzsche. I like to, just completely, like make his name out. I like Nietzsche. But, dude, these people believe some shit that is retarded. And you know what she actually told me? She actually told me, well, it's never been done right before. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Which example did they not do right?
Right? Exactly. Was it Maoist China, or was it Stalin's Soviet Union, or is it, take your pick? We got Cuba right now. We had Venezuela up until Trump took action. We've got, what's going on in Russia. That's a communist kleptocracy. We've got, of course, the Chinese Communist Party, which, by the way, is the same government that is responsible for the 100 million deaths, in the from 1950 to the present day. Same government in power, man.
But David,
So, like-
just out of curiosity, what does Kierkegaard and Nietzsche have to do with her views on communism?
It was just a philosophical conversation, sitting in bed. That's all it was. And
Because
at the end of
sometimes
it,
the very concept that we're talking about, we are being way too surveilled by those flock cameras. Say, yeah, but that's how we achieve freedom. So freedom can mean different things for different people. Some communists will believe that you can achieve the pinnacle of freedom in communism because that's what mankind was meant
Because
for.
the people own the means of production. So
Correct.
it makes
That's
us all
their.
prosperous and free.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly.
And we're all the same. We're all equals here.
Oh,
that's not how people work, man. That's not how life works. And it leads to mass murder.
Well, and the big thing is, I mean, even if it didn't lead to that, it's not going to lead to a prosperous nation because, I mean, look at look at everybody these days. We already have a problem where a massive amount of people live off the system, and the system is fueled by the people that produce, the people that go to work and pay taxes. Because, welfare checks and EBT and all that stuff doesn't just magically fucking show up. Somebody's got to pay for it. And it's not like the government has a job. It's not like Big Daddy government is, running a business or something like that. And, they're making a bunch of money. They rape it from us. Like 40 to 50% of what we earn. And, I'm sure in Canada it's probably worse. But, the majority of our income tax, the freaking business pays business, all kinds of business taxes and stuff like that. And we pay income tax, then we pay sales tax, then we pay gas at the tax at the pump. We paid to license our vehicles and to license boats and just inheritance tax, capital gains tax, just all these different taxes. So
currency debasement that takes all of us, that will devalue the currency, and it's like taxing all of us.
But I mean, my point is that there's a crux, there's a tipping point to where there's more people taking from the system than there are putting in. And with socialism, it basically de-incentivizes anybody for working because you're going to get the same car, the same house, the same benefits, the same crappy medical, that universal health care everybody wants. Trust me, I've worked for the government for 22 years. The medical sucks. It's free, but it sucks. And I mean, hell, and, now that I'm out, the VA, go freaking take a look at the VA or, look at some of the reviews, at the VA hospital. And people are waiting months, if not years, for treatment. It's ridiculous.
Same with Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Canada is a two-tiered system. It's those who know doctors and those who don't. So I have this membership at a squash club. It's a men's club. It's like one of the only men's club in Canada. And the only reason I keep it beyond, playing squash and it being gin is I have access to doctors. And without that, like I've helped people in my family, my sister, my mom, little things that they would have been in the queue for like 14 months just to get looked at. So like when they say free healthcare, universal healthcare, it's such a sham. It's incredible. Like the last thing you want to do is go into an emergency room in Canada. It's like 16 hours.
Yeah.
Can you
Forget
imagine
about
that?
surgery.
Surgery, forget about it. Most people die. Like again, the only people that are surviving it know a doctor, right? They're
Well,
like the
they
6
know a
degrees of a
doctor,
doctor.
or they have the money and the means to go to pay for a private doctor.
Yeah, a lot of them go to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester.
Yeah, no, it's people with money, they're going to get the care. If they got to fly a doctor in from another country, they will. I mean,
So-
they have the means.
You know what's funny about that, Mike? So over the last 6 months living here in South Florida, my skin has been really bothering me, like constantly itchy. And so I've seen 5
It was
providers.
because you were doing dirty things with the liberal. That's what happened.
It's a
Communist,
you're
right?
fucking
You got
right.
some
The
kind of
fucking-
BD or something. You
God
got that
damn.
liberal BD.
So
You got
that-
You got that liberal thing on you now.
oh,
You got
So
the
that's-
gumbo. You got the
that's-
dread
that's-
gumbo, man.
brother, that's not what it is. But so what the dermatologist who I've been seeing, what he thinks it is the fucking laundry detergent. Like apparently there's a host of chemicals in laundry detergent that if you're exposed to it for a long enough period of time, all of a sudden it can like cause flare-ups on your skin. And so that's what's been happening to me. And I was just thinking to myself, like, if I really needed to get like treatment that was super expensive for this, you know what I would do? I would fly back to California and I would say, I have no income, and I would get on Medi-Cal in Northern California. And then I would get free treatment and the best treatment. So, there's something to be said for a single payer healthcare, but the problem is that you can't extend single payer healthcare to people who don't pay into that system. So like you can't have illegal immigrants from everywhere around the world getting access to free, very, very good healthcare. That
Or
doesn't
Americans.
work, man.
They're undocumented, David.
That don't
Not
work.
not
Yeah.
illegal. They're undocumented. Let's get it right. And you need to make some of that detergent that I made. It's great.
So what I did is I bought this brand called Puracy, and I just got it. It's sitting in a box over there. So I'm going to be washing all my clothes, all my sheets, everything with this new detergent. And then I'll probably wash it with nothing, just water. Because I got to say, over just the last couple of days, as I've been washing with just water, dude, my clothes feel way different. The ones that were washed with water versus the ones with detergent, There's a big noticeable difference between the two. And I realized, like, oh my God, I've been rubbing this stuff on my skin every moment of every day of my life since I was born.
Yeah.
And, from everything I've read,
your skin is porous. It stuff can seep through your skin. There's certain chemicals that if you get on your skin that, you die because your body absorbs stuff through your skin.
yeah, man.
Largest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Largest organ in the body. So now there's something to that.
For sure
Now
there
that we
is.
are in kind of a dystopian part of the conversation, do you guys think that we're going to have something like UBI, Universal Basic Income?
I think we're going to have to. Elon Musk has talked about this, where it's going to get to a point to where robotics and AI and a lot of this stuff is going to replace enough jobs that if they don't, they're going to have riots in the streets. They're going to have to provide people's at least their basic necessities. And then if people want to go out and start businesses or get a part-time job, doing something to earn extra money. But if they don't, it's going to be, there's only the tipping point throughout history is in, they everybody always kind of jokes about it as far as Roman history, where they talk about the bread and games. So those that don't know, back in the day, the way that, the Romans, that
Colosseum in
understood
Roman.
that the people was where the power was. And so they would have games. They would have the Roman gladiators and all that sort of stuff to entertain the people, to distract them. And
While
they
the
would,
empire was falling.
well, yeah, and they'd be handing out bread at to all the people and stuff to give them food. And so basically they were using it to pacify them, to distract them. And it's what a lot of people talk about with social media and with movies and music, and we got welfare where people are fed and housed and all that stuff. And if that stops and people get uncomfortable where they don't have food and their kids are crying because they're hungry, and the tipping point is where it's less painful to rise up than it is to just exist. That's the tipping point.
What is the evidence that EBT and all this aids, the aid from the government, all this help from the government, the EBT, the old food stamps, and all that? What is the evidence that this is not the beginning of UBI? Isn't that like the very beginning of UBI, and we just
So
going to make it wider
what's the
and wider
what's the
and wider?
evidence that it's not? Well, I think obviously it is the beginning of UBI, and it must be. But is it sustainable? And the answer to that, I think, is no. So if we take a look at the largest UBI program in the United States, the Social Security program,
Right.
looks as though there's going to be significant cuts to Social Security. It's 2026, so in 3 years there are going to be some pretty significant cuts to Social Security, according to the Social Security Administration. So are we in an era where people require UBI to survive today? I don't think that we are, man. I think that we have millions of people in the United States and in Europe and in Canada too, and also in Australia, these Western white democracies, where there are these people here, man, who just should not be here. And they are a net drain, and they have no intentions of integrating into society whatsoever.
And worse, because we saw it with the Somali daycares and stuff. They're here, living off the taxpayer, and then they're defrauding the government and the taxpayer by opening up these businesses, getting grants and subsidies and things like that, basically making millions of dollars, claiming that they're adult care centers and daycares, and driving expensive cars and stuff like that. And there's like no kids in the daycares. There's no old people in in the elder care.
And the Armenian
Yeah.
hospices in LA.
Yeah.
That's the other one.
And the amount of money that has been stolen is gargantuan. We're talking about potentially hundreds of billions of dollars over the course of the last several decades. It didn't just start last year. It started 30 years ago, and it's just that it ramped up a lot during COVID.
it's just a perfect example. Social Security that you brought up, David, is a perfect example of the government's inability to run anything efficiently. Because there's a bunch of people who've done the math, and the average American that works, from 18 to like 65. I forget the exact number, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that ends up being put into their Social Security account. Because those that don't know, Social Security, it's not a benefit. We pay into it our whole lives, along with we pay it out of every check, along with that FICA bitch that I never met. But she's getting she's always taking a part of my check. Never met the chick, but anyway, if you put it into, and maybe you can help me out, David. There's an investment that you can make like 5 or 10% on.
It's called the S&P 500.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's a good example. The S&P 500. What's the average rate of return annually from that?
12%.
12%. So 12% on, say, like $1.5 million is how much a year?
Well, 150, 160K.
Yeah. So $160,000 a year. If we just kept our money that we were forced to pay into a system, invested it in the S&P 500, and just let it build, we would be making $150,000 a year in our retirement. Instead, the broken system pays you maybe 30 or 20.
It's so much worse than that, Mike. It's so much worse than that. I was running through this with my parents. My parents are in their 70s, okay? They've been paying into this broken Ponzi scheme Social Security system their entire working lives. And so I was just running down the math. Like, okay, let's say that, you're making $100,000 a year, to keep the math easy, right? And half of that income goes to the state in some form or fashion. And then a portion of that goes into Social Security. So you're paying in every year tens of thousands of dollars per year over the course of your entire working lifetime. How much would you need to get back from that system just to break even? Okay. And when can you retire? You can retire at what, 62 or something like that? You can start getting checks at 62 from Social Security. So if you've been paying into it from age 18 to age 62, you've been paying in for 40 some odd years, okay? 44 years. So 44 years times, let's say you paid in 10K a year. You got $400,000 that you paid into the system. How much are you going to be able to draw, right? So you're 62. If you draw 2K a month, then maybe you're getting 24K a year. So if you live for another decade from 62 to 72, you have not drawn half of what you paid in.
I'm glad that's not a Ponzi scheme, right? It has nothing to do with a
straight up Ponzi. It is a straight up Ponzi scheme. That literally is the definition for it. So you don't get back what you paid in, and you would do so much better just to have these Trump accounts. Like if a child is just enrolled in a Trump account and just gets SpaceX stock and S&P 500 shares and just lets that sit for 18 years, you're so much better off than paying into Social Security. So it's a straight up Ponzi, man. And people make the argument in favor of Social Security because you don't want to be communist China where no one's got a Social Security, like a safety net. We want people to have a safety net. But we also don't want to be funding a broken program that essentially steals from you. Like you should be able to opt out, okay? Like you should be able to opt out. You should also be able to opt out from Medicare, right? That's that fucking FICA bullshit. Like you should be able to opt out from these broken programs, and you can't. So it's theft, is what it is.
Why can't you? Why can't you opt out?
I think it's by law. They just steal it from your paycheck if you're W-2, and if you're 1099, you got to pay it at the end of the year in a lump sum.
It's the same thing as taxes. They rob it from you before you even get it, and so you can't do shit about it.
If you file your taxes, you get hit pretty hard for medical if you don't have insurance.
But what Jeff and everyone, what Matty just said, he asked the question, what happens if you don't? What happens if you don't pay into it, right? I think that, with all the revelations of all these fucking illegal invaders performing all this fraud and doing all this crime across the country, and we see no repercussions for any of that. And we, as American citizens, are afraid of some big bad wolf knocking at our doors because we say, hey, you know what? These taxes are unjust. We're being fucked by this bullshit system. And we're afraid what? Of IRS agents with guns knocking at our doors saying, cut me a check right
That's a
now
good
or we
point.
can get prison.
That's a good.
That's
point.
that's extortion, brother.
Yeah.
That's extortion.
Yeah.
So,
under threat of violence. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what happens if you don't pay it? Well,
Oh, dude, don't pay your property taxes. You watch what happens. I mean, they're kicking old people out of their homes that they paid off years ago, worked their whole lives to own, and because of inflation and the government mismanagement, they get to a point to where they can't afford food, they can't afford to pay property taxes, and so they lose their home. It's like that's some bullshit.
Well, it's an interesting aspect of the responsibility of ownership, right? I learned a very, very valuable lesson when I got divorced in my early 30s. So in my early 30s, I was what you would call just a complete normie, right? I had a business, I had a house, and I had a duplex. I was like, I think I'm doing it right. I feel like I'm a pretty normal guy here. And then when before I got divorced, I got hit with an income tax bill. And I was of the mind where I was like, oh, fuck it. I don't give a shit about it. And then they put a lien on my house and they closed my bank account. And so the ownership, what I get back to, like with having the house, they had a neck to put a knee to.
Yep.
And so at the same time, I got divorced and had to liquidate assets and give 50% of it to someone.
Yeah.
And then I had zero assets. And then all of a sudden, the knee came off the neck. Because after that, I guess the only neck they had was this illusion of prison. I suppose maybe they could like lock me in a cage, but for the amount of money it probably never would have went to prison. And they disappeared for a good 10 years. I never did anything. Now this is Canada. It's a little different, but that's where it always comes back to Bitcoin. Like as you build your wealth through these assets that you don't really own, there's someone that you just have beneficial ownership of it to the upside or downside of it, and they can lean on it and take it at will, essentially. That's why since then, I've only been in Bitcoin.
so Maddie, when you say that these assets that you don't really own, that is a great point, man. Because when you own, quote unquote, property in the United States, or I'm assuming in Canada too, if they can just put a lien on that property and usurp it from you, steal it from you, or tax it until you are forced to sell it to pay some tax bill, do you really own anything? I think the answer is no. I think the answer is no. Yeah.
Well,
Physical gold.
Physical
How
gold.
about physical
gold.
Bitcoin? How about physical Bitcoin? What do you think,
Because
Paula?
we now know that Bitcoin can be considered very centralized. I mean, at least concentrated in a way. You have like 4 developers that will tell you what happens at the end of the day. So
Well,
that's not
not quite. Not
I'm
quite.
a huge fan of diversification. So I got physical gold and silver. I got crypto. I got ammo. Because where I'm at, ammo is currency. You can barter and trade with people with rounds, especially if it's like 5.56 or 22 or 308. Common calibers 9mm. I mean, that's cash. You can get people to bring a tractor over or a backhoe to dig a hole for you, and give them a couple boxes of ammo.
How about some anti-tank missiles? I got a couple of those
what?
in the Barrett 40.
America.
America.
Nothing should be illegal. No, I'm kidding. But no, we have to. You guys make valid points. To be self-sovereign, we got to start figuring out ways to separate ourselves from the system. And so they don't have a neck to put a boot on.
Digital assets.
But Mike, let me ask you this, because I know you have a whole show about this called Sovereign Soil.
Yeah.
And it seems that it is the solution. Because, or in a way, it will be an answer. Because I think we can all agree here that this process that we're going to be more surveilled, that they can put a lien on your house, that your property is not really your property because if you stop paying taxes, they're going to take it away,
You're right.
and so on and so forth. I don't think this crazy process and that we are being invaded by people with a different culture, with a different language, and we don't really have control about that. What is the solution? I think your show kind of offers that Sovereign Soil is about the solution, isn't it? What would be the solution for you?
Well, I mean, for me, I mean, what I did is I retired out of the military, and I had all those things that you're supposed to get to be happy. I had the 5,000 square foot house and the the wakeboard boat and all the stuff and the things, the toys, and I was miserable. And so I sold my rental property, sold the boat, sold everything, whatever I couldn't fit in my truck, I sold it. And I went on a road trip, and I came up here in the woods and found the perfect little property. I pitched a tent, built a cabin with my own two hands, the cabin behind me. I built it myself, and basically separated myself as much as I could, got into crypto, to try to financially remove myself from the system as much as possible. And I'm just always trying to find ways to just not be a part of the system. And I'm not like anti-government. I know we need a government. I'm not, freaking, making pipe bombs or anything like that. But I just don't want to participate. I want to be left alone. I, fought for my country, defended my country for a long time, my adult life, and I just want to enjoy it. I just want
Would
to
you
be left.
consider that people that they're going to go off grid? That would be kind of an overkill.
Well, it depends on the level of kind of sovereignty you want, because no matter how much you do, as long as you're on the soil of whatever country, they're going to make you abide by their laws. So it's there's only so far that you can remove yourself. Like maybe in Canada, there's some fucking vast wilderness up there that you could hike off into and never be heard from again. And you're not going to have anybody messing with you. There's vast expanses up there, but you can take steps. Food. Being self-sovereign food wise. Jeff is big on clean eating. But up here, we garden, people keep chickens for eggs and stuff like that. So, removing themselves from that, big pharma and the food industrial complex and, who knows what's in your food kind of stuff. When it comes to, building your own place, building your own homestead, just anything you can do, water, solar, making it to where you can be attached to the grid. But if the power goes down, if everything goes to shit, do you have hydroelectric, on your property? Do you have solar? Do you have wind? Do you have a way?
Or you believe in ammo, physical,
No,
precious metal, physical gold and silver, toilet paper, S&P 500?
Toilet paper is a luxury. I mean, I know it sounds weird or gross, but I mean, I lived a lot of years deployed where we didn't have toilet paper. You figured it out. It's like just, you do. So
Plenty of leaves outside.
you
Or
learn.
just-
There's
You
a
got
lot of,
water. You can wash your hands.
well, there's a lot of things that are luxuries. A lot. I mean, having indoor plumbing, it's a luxury. It's a luxury we've
Right.
got.
Good point. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
a luxury. There's
In certain
still,
countries, it's impolite to shake hands because
With
that's
the wrong
what you
hand.
wipe with.
yeah.
wrong
Because they don't
hand.
have indoor plumbing.
No, dude. When I was in the Middle East, and it's kind of gross, but they do communal food, and so like when you go to meet with like a local chief or something like that, and they invite you in, it's rude to not accept a meal or tea or whatever, and they just they use their non-wiping hand, but everyone's just grabbing into the food and freaking eating with their hands.
Non-wiping hand. What the fuck are you talking about?
It's just the way it is.
I'm ambidextrous though.
Yeah. It's like.
Can I ask you this, Jeff? Do you consider also the solution should be along those lines? You have ammo, gold, silver, toilet paper. I mean, for Mike is a luxury because he used the wiping hand to not eat, and there's a different idea there. What do you consider to be the solution?
No, I was a lot bigger on having most of my investments in crypto and not like the traditional markets, getting out of the dollar. But as we've done this show the past year and talked more about like the ammo and gold and silver, like physical, because I learned not too long ago that if you buy stocks, you don't own the actual stock. It's just this, your broker owns it. And, that's a problem too. It's like you have this illusion that you own this thing, but if you don't have the physical thing in your house, in your safe, do you really own it? Who's the middleman?
It's called custody. So
yeah,
you only have custody of an asset if you hold cash, physical paper cash. That is a bearer instrument. If you own, let's say, something like a CBDC like USDC or USDT, if you have custody of that asset, you own that asset.
Well, it can be frozen, like we've seen many times.
Right, it can, but you still have custody of it. If you own Bitcoin, spot Bitcoin on the layer 1, you have custody of that Bitcoin. You cannot censor a private key. If you own property in the United States, do you actually custody that? Or is it really, even if it's paid off, custodied by the state? I think it's probably custodied by the state.
Are you talking about the legal ownership or the physical? Because legal,
I gotta defend my property with guns.
Well, and even if you built your own home and it wasn't, you didn't have all the paperwork and stuff, they would come and tear it down. They're like, oh, this is a violation. You can't just build this place here without proper inspections and stuff. So I don't know if there's a way that you would be able to get around that without having some bank or entity involved in that process.
I wish that there was, but unfortunately, maybe in the free state of Florida, where we have no property taxes now.
Well,
so
speaking of free state of Florida, check this out.
County just keeps getting worse for Florida. If you live in Charlotte County, I was just told that they're planning on implementing this. It's a camera that I guess sits on top of the freaking garbage truck, and it just scans for permits. And if you have an active permit, and oh my gosh, there's a new window on your house, it looks like you might have replaced your roof. Like, what the fuck? So we have flat cameras that watch your every move. We have data centers that are holding the information, and now we have garbage trucks that are watching our homes for permits. What?
Wow.
So, that's kind of where we're at. Is
well, how did they do it back in the day when, like, Little House on the Prairie? You just see this nice house, this cabin was built, and
you're breaking up, Jeff. I can't hear you.
like Little House on the Prairie, when they had this nice little cabin built for their family, did the government need to come in and have inspections done, or
No.
they have to pay property taxes? And who built it? Did the father who owned the land build it? And
Yeah, people built like they did what I did. They freaking lived in a freaking shelter, a covered wagon while they built their freaking house.
But that thing what David mentioned about, I never thought about the concept of custody of property itself, the house. Because if you look at all the tax lien and tax deed system that they find a way to get paid no matter what, it really seems that the state has the custody of your house. Because if you stop paying, they have a whole system to take it away from you. It's a very
Well, they have a legal system to take the legal ownership away, but there's a second layer where they got to come physically take.
Well, yeah, but that requires a badass motherfucker like you, Mike.
That too kindly.
Yeah. Yeah.
to take possession of the property. You have but property and possession. They're two different concepts.
But you've got to be willing to take it that far. Like if you're the rightful owner of that property and there are law enforcement officers coming to physically remove you from that property, you've got to be willing to,
say no.
You got to be willing to say no. And that's a tough thing to do, man. Imagine if you got a family.
Oh,
like
yeah.
what?
It would be a very different reaction. If I had a wife and kids and stuff like that, it'd be a very different reaction than just me by myself.
She would be armed. Your son and daughter would be armed. You'd be fighting together.
If anything, I would like send them to go stay with family or something, and be like, all right, in Custer's last stand or something. But
one of the problems, I don't know if you guys have any kids, but like when you're planning the future, it's one thing to plan your own escape, right? But it's another to like there's certain people in your family you can't leave behind. And so what I mean by that is like my plan in Canada is like I'm like a really smart Siamese cat staring at the door and waiting for that door to open wide enough for one day I just run through and I never come back.
Yeah.
But I can't do that without my child, right? So everything gets a little more complicated. That day will come, the door will open, and I think we're getting those signals now. And so, like when I see the emergence of the unrealized capital gains, to me, that's the elite signaling their buddies, you can't live in this country anymore. This is going to be a tax farm, so get out.
yeah,
And then they get out. And the people that don't get out will become, the tax slaves of that region, and they'll just, work their whole life and they'll be serfs, right? So every time you hear unrealized capital gains, if it comes to Canada, which it will, that's when I got to really eyeball that door. Once that door opens, you got to go. But unfortunately, you can't take anything with you really except Bitcoin and crypto. So the gold and the silver, I don't think you're going to escape out that door with it. The house, definitely not. You're going to abandon it. Right? Hopefully, it doesn't get that far.
Wallet, man. You got to put your gold bars in your prison wallet.
You're not going to be able to fit much gold up there, man. What the fuck?
You'd be surprised.
You got to do what you got to do, man.
How about a Trezor? Why don't you start with that? Fuck.
Yeah, but you know what? There you go. There's a bullish case.
A Trezor on your prison wallet.
You can keister a lot more value with than you can with gold.
Oh Jesus.
Maddie,
back to the-
let me ask you this real quick. You said that you were a normie before divorce or something. What's
Like,
changed?
as
Because
normie
we're
as
talking
I
about being sovereign.
wasn't as
and-
normie as normies, but I was as normie as I ever was, if that makes sense. Because I've always been a musician, and musicians are never that normal.
Right. And what's
You're
changed?
more asleep than awake.
What's changed?
to all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I've always had the same belief I have now, but it was masked in my own denial of I can't be right. So everything that I ever thought was going to happen, including COVID, including, the flock cameras, these are all the things. I'm sure you have friends. You might be one of these people that always talked about it, to the point where people would, I was known as the crazy guy with the conspiracies.
Yeah.
And as everything has kind of come to fruition, it's a lose-lose situation. It's not like anyone I ever told anything about comes back to me and says, it turns out you were right about that crazy shit, right? They just never talk to you again. So, but before that, the reason why I was more normie is that I was financially illiterate. I was like a boomer, right? I was just like, buy a house, start a business, squirrel away some pension, right? I was just all about that. That's all I knew. And it took getting divorced and getting hit with income tax to force me to become financially illiterate pretty fucking quick. And it all happened in about a year or two. And I've never been the same.
No, and it's, I don't know. It's, oh, never mind. I've had a point. It eludes me.
I'm going to add one more thing. We were talking about stocks and everything and housing. It's all held in one place. It's called the DTCC, the Depository Trust Clearance Corporation. So there's this book called The Great Taking by David Webb. And it was like my gift to humanity, if I can be so fucking hyperbolic and delusional, is that when it first came out, I thought, I quickly looked, is there an audio book? No, there's no audio book. It was relatively new. I'm sure there's many now, but I took about a month and I recorded an audio book and I put it on to YouTube. So I read it quite a lot because, I had to get it right. So I was reading it, rereading it, recording it. So I learned way more than I ever really want to know about the financial system is in that book. It's called The Great Taking.
But they say if you read that book, you will not sleep for a couple of nights.
So
Right, because you realize this is a house of cards that can be just one little funk and it's
Oh,
all over because you literally don't own anything.
yeah,
Like, Mike, all you have is your guns.
yeah.
That's
And your
it.
crypto,
No,
your
well,
Bitcoin.
but that's why I'm so like 1A 2A Constitution is because it's the only thing we have. I mean, is basically a document, an old piece of hemp paper that says these are the rights that you're born with that should not be infringed upon by a government because they just got done fighting a freaking war.
And they are God given,
Yeah.
not from the state.
No, they're not. They're not granted. It's recognizing those rights, and so it's just Anyway, but what I was wanting to say before was the like over 10 years ago when I moved out here into the woods. I know my whole family was like, "Yep, crazy Mike." Freaking the old vet moved to the woods. Wants to be left alone. I'm a stereotype. The freaking vet that lives in the woods. But more and more, like Maddie was talking about, I've started to get contacted by old friends and some of my family. So what's it like up there? It's like my brother is actually we're starting that adventure guide company, and he's buying a piece of property up here because he wants to build a cabin up here. He came up here and visited a couple times, and he's like, I kind of see what you're talking about. This ain't a bad way to live, and I think more and more people are waking up to that. That guy that you said had a tinfoil hat on, aliens. When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, freaking, if you believed in aliens, you were a crackpot.
Hey, man, don't talk shit about my aliens, okay?
Well, dude, JFK assassination, that the
Space
CIA
aliens.
or the U.S. government had any part in that was a conspiracy theory. There was a ton of conspiracy theories, and all of them have, our government came out and said UFOs are real. They came out and said that
2023, right? In Congress.
What's that?
2023 in Congress, they admitted there was a bunch of hearings and everything that they pretty much said, yeah, it's real. We've been watching it.
They came out and said that the CIA maybe didn't directly do it, but they had a part in the JFK assassination. They came out and said it.
That's pretty obvious at this point, I think. And all of these so-called conspiracy theories. So what is the origin of the term conspiracy theorist? What's the origin of that? It's a CIA term. And it was created to discredit anyone who spoke out against whatever the incumbency had to say. So if the disinformation, malinformation, misinformation, conspiracy theorists. There we go.
There
you go. Jeff has his tinfoil hat on. All right. He's safe now. They can't read his thoughts. The government can't
That's right. There might be something to that, actually.
Hold on. Let me go get mine.
Yeah.
Need to block the EMFs.
It's about a movie, isn't it? There is a guy in a movie that he would be wearing a tinfoil hat because, the origin of the tinfoil hat, it comes from a movie from the 70s or 80s.
Did you guys see the last couple recordings from?
But I don't know the name of the movie.
From John McAfee. Did you guys see John McAfee's last handful of recordings?
Yes.
Oh, he's in the room.
He's in the room with the pile of crack in the corner, and he's got he's surrounded by tinfoil.
The Faraday room, yeah.
Yeah,
Faraday.
exactly. Yeah, smart guy.
No, but let's go ahead and wrap this up. So let's do final thoughts. So let's just go around the horn. So Jeff, final thoughts.
And I think since it's almost unavoidable, the best thing to do is do something like what Mike's doing. Move out the middle of nowhere. Try and be as self-sustaining as possible. Have physical gold, silver, ammo, guns if it's legal in your area. And try and refrain from going into big cities as much as possible. And just try and live a peaceful life, as much as you can wherever you're at. And I don't think going overseas would help because I think certain countries it's just going to be inevitable there too. But yeah, just try and be self-sovereign and keep to yourself as much as you can without them, infringing upon your rights.
David, final thoughts.
And get yourself a tinfoil hat.
There you go.
I think the tinfoil hat's a good idea. Final thoughts, man. So if we're talking about the flock cameras, I think that the flock cameras, there's a way to do that where it can aid law enforcement in really doing something positive for society. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the way that it's being implemented now. So I have to say I'm against those cameras in their current implementation. But if I'm just talking about like conspiracy theories, like, man, that term, it's reprehensible. Like the entire term, the thought of a conspiracy theory or malinformation or misinformation or disinformation, these are terms that have been created to disincentivize us from talking about things that are real, things that are happening right now in our lives every day, so that we will shut the fuck up and not buck the status quo.
Not allow us to question it.
Yeah, man.
Because if you do question, you're a conspiracy theorist, meaning you are a crazy F.
Well, David, go ahead and finish your final thought.
But they're taking it a step further, though, Paula. What they're actually doing now is, okay, you're a conspiracy theorist. You are, someone who spreads misinformation or disinformation, or you're an anti-vaxxer, or the worst is you're a Nazi. And so if you're a Nazi, what do we do to Nazis? We kill them.
Or a racist, or
racist. Only on Tuesdays, okay?
Yeah.
Only in the Discord.
Right.
Racist. All right, Paulo.
Yeah, I think Jeff mentioned the word. It's like it's unavoidable. I don't think in 2027 we're going to be less surveilled than we are in 2026. So that's why I was asking you guys, what is the solution? I like one old saying, because what can I do in my personal life to protect myself? So I like that old saying, what happens in my house is more important than what happens in the White House. So what can I do personally so I can defend myself? So that's why I believe in gold, physical gold and silver and guns. And I have my treasure that I can keep it in my prison wallet. So it's a small thing.
Gold-plated guns. That's like you have
gold-plated guns.
You have value and protection.
Some cartel shit. All right.
Well, you have value and protection. So, all right. Sorry. Go ahead, Paulo. Finish up.
No, but that's it. I'm keeping my treasure in my prison wallet.
Nice.
So, and I have all my assets in there, Bitcoin, everything.
No pun intended. Assets. No pun intended.
Ugh.
Oh. All right.
Put it in a condom first, okay? Yeah. Jesus.
All right, Matty B. Closing thoughts, brother.
I think things changed for me when I accepted that all of this is my fault. So every time that I shut my mouth because I thought it might be inappropriate for me to add this to a conversation, I was just stringing along this narrative that's ruining Western civilization. So if it's my fault, I now have the power to change everything around me. And I do it through my language, and I get into a lot of trouble, and I don't get invited to many parties, and I don't give a shit, but I'm the racist, weird, misogynist uncle at all the family dinners, and I hold no bars, and I don't apologize for anything. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm here to create militia o'clock amongst my peers. That's where I'm at. And if it's not militia o'clock for everyone you know, then you got to get new friends that join your militia o'clock.
Yeah. Appreciate y'all. My final thoughts is we all need to get rich in crypto and buy an island together, or buy like a small country, and just be the free state of crypto, or whatever we want to call it. And Paulo, it's we need to talk, brother. I think maybe you need to like host a show on the Node with that velvet voice of yours, man. So,
oh my God, yeah. Well, I'm very excited to be with you guys here. I've been watching the shows. I watched it. Red Pill, the last one, was heated.
Oh, yeah. Those are the ones I like when they get spicy. Because my brother Taylor, he's Matty B. I don't know if you've watched the show, but my brother Taylor, he's on the show a regular. But he owns his own law firm down in McKinney, Texas. And and he does like elder law and like small business formation, wills, trust, things like that. And him and David, like were like what was it that you guys were going off on? Because he was
the Muslims.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. He was talking about
First
that
Amendment.
because of his business dealings. He's like, they've always been very honorable people when I've dealt with them. They've always been good people. And David's was making the point that just because the few that you met seem to be okay doesn't mean they're all okay. It's the same thing with any group of people or people in general. Just because there's some good people doesn't mean everybody's good. But anyway, those are the ones I like
what?
because people
It just
go out.
hit me. Paulo
What?
sounds like this whole podcast. I was like, what movie am I listening to? And it was No Country for Old Men. It's like,
Oh
we're
my
going-
God,
we're
I
going
love
to
that
flip
movie.
a coin here. It's going
Oh,
to be
yeah.
heads or tails. It's a very
Oh my
important
God, I like
decision.
that guy. Yeah, Javier Bardem.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Paulo, we need to talk, man. I think that you would do good, hosting a show or something like that if you're interested.
Yeah, I would enjoy that. Yeah, let's talk.
All right, cool. But yeah, my actually final thoughts on this is just honestly, the smartest thing you can do is be as self-sovereign as possible because there is a lot more dumb people. We're in this nexus of Idiocracy, The Matrix, and Terminator. Or in like I'm sure you've seen that graphic where there's like the three bubbles and where they
It's
like
a meme. Yeah.
where they
Uh-huh.
mix.
Mhm.
We have
Venn
AI
diagram.
and robotics of the Terminator.
The trilemma.
Yeah, we got the Matrix where it's like everything's misinformation and disinformation and social media and like this fake world that we live in. Our fake fiat that they just print, but somehow it's valuable. And then then you got Idiocracy where you just have the mass idiots that decide how the world is run. And it's like this weird freaking hellscape. And the only thing you can do is just separate yourself from it until enough people wake up to either vote out these idiots or rise up or whatever it is that's going to fix it if it ever gets fixed. But until then, I'm just going to live peacefully in the woods, stare out my window at the mountains, and sit by the creek and drink a beer and watch the sun go down. And as long as I'm left alone, I'll leave the world alone. So that's all I got to say. And
one last thing before we end, Mike. Everyone, join the source. Go to the Node.pro, click on Source Room, create a free account, join the source.
I'll show you.
That's the place to be. So I built today a social media network for all of us at the Node.pro, and no censorship of any kind. So if you want to talk about whatever you want to talk about, you can do that there. And any feature that you want to see built into that, I will and can build any feature you can imagine into that. So
And
Mike
David, is it
is
possible to say spicy things about different kinds of people?
oh, si senor. Si.
You can say whatever you want. It's I believe in all. I believe in all free speech. There is no such thing as forbidden speech, in my opinion. Just because if anybody starts picking and choosing what's okay to say, then then it ends up being whoever's in power decides what's acceptable speech, and then you stop having free speech. So I would rather somebody say something that's offensive to me, then I know who I'm dealing with. I would rather that than everybody be forced into compliance. I have to deal with somebody on a daily basis at a job or in my personal life, and then come to find out years later that I had somebody that felt a certain way or thought a certain way, and I had no idea. I'd rather that they just be able to come out and say whatever it is that they want. So, but yeah, this is the Node.pro. Up on the top menu, you can see. Just go to the source room, and you can just sign up, and it's free, doesn't cost anything. But you can come in here, you can chat all you want, say whatever you want. And then, of course, we got the Intel library. If you're looking for deep dives on any project, this is 100% free. We don't even charge for it. All you got to do is make an account. But you can go through, and all of these are deep dives on all these different projects. And you can click on them. They all have videos that you can watch. They're basically 8-minute videos that give you the down and dirty on these projects. You can go through, all of the reading material with all the, the facts and the figures and everything.
And Mike, if you scroll up to the top there, what you'll be able, in addition to all the source material at the very bottom of every single one of these deep dives, at the very top of the deep dives, you've got the ability to share that piece of deep dive content in the source room. So if you want to if you scroll up to right there, share to the source room. You can also share it. You can share it to X. You can share it to the source room. So if you've got, a point that you want to make in the source, and you want to say, hey, you know what? I think this project is going to do this, this, and this, and here's my evidence. You can share it directly from the Intel library. So pretty cool.
So all of this evidence, all of these deep dives that we do, they are based off of primary sources. So we cite all of our sources. And if you go down here, this is the slide deck, and then you can go to the infographic, just the one shot. But if you go to the source document, scroll to the very bottom, every single one of them, just like in college, you have to cite your sources. So all the information that we have in the deep dive, we cite our sources. This is key. If you're listening to a channel and they're talking to you about anything, it is their personal opinion, unless they cite a source that actually backs up what it is they're saying. Because that's kind of the long and the short of it. But we cite our sources for everything. You can go through this, fact check it. If we're wrong about anything, and I literally mean anything, reach out to us, cite your source showing that we were incorrect, and we are more than happy to fix it. We are about knowledge here. No egos. We don't hype anything. We don't FUD anything. We are about
Integrity.
America.
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 I think I've yammered
I'm
on.
in the source room right now. Yes, I saw that Maddie just joined. And it's a nice way. Maybe, I don't know if you guys agree, but maybe it's a nice way also to keep the conversation going. So let's say that somebody's watching right now. They can join the source room and say, hey, I agree, I disagree. And
Yes.
we don't
Open
have this
Discord.
kind of censorship from the
Dude.
previous network.
Can we make it to where there's like a video chat in there, to where like people
Yes.
that are watching the show could actually join their own show,
Yes.
like in there,
Yes.
and like, be debating amongst themselves in there
Yes.
instead of having to type?
That's actually the next thing I was thinking about was how do I integrate live video calls
Yeah.
into the source? And I
That
think that's probably the next thing. Yeah.
Because then if people are having like a good solid conversation in the chat with each other, like I see that they're doing sometimes, they can just go in there and have a conversation about it. And maybe like we can end up figuring out a way to where we can add that to the show. Like we can actually bring them on stage if we see that they're having like a solid conversation that would be valuable to the community. Then we could bring them onto the show. Like, I guess I could just send them a link or something like that.
And also, I can see just taking a look at the user count. So I created this like 2 hours ago. We've already got like 10 people in there. We've got 500 people in the Discord. They're all going to migrate into the source at the node.pro. And this is going to be the place where we're going to be able to engage freely. And I
There's
think
no
that
vocabulary police there.
none of
You
that.
can say this, you cannot say that. Oh, this is a slur. This is bad language. This is whatever. And
No, there's no such thing as that. Not here at the source. So
As a wise man Cartman once said, suck my balls.
respect my liquidity.
Yeah, suck my balls. All right. Well, I appreciate you all. And Matty B, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for the invite. It's fun.
Oh, dude. Anytime you want to come on, this is every Thursday night. We just have
Right on.
we've talked about psychedelics. We've talked about all kinds of stuff. Like
Perfect.
medicinal
Yeah, all
properties
that.
and yeah. And Paulo, I'll get with you maybe like tomorrow, or let me know a good time to get with you, because I really would. I'd like to talk to you about either helping host or hosting.
yes, sir. Let's talk.
All right. Well, hopefully we see y'all tomorrow for the Node and the Node show in the morning. And until then, Veteran Crypto out.
Peace.
Peace out.